So I've been in Lappland a few weeks now and been very busy doing lots of things around the little cabin, chopping down trees, all sorts of things, going fishing a lot. But and the weather's been amazing, but we've got a bit of a rainier, cooler day today. So we're going to start our first little project on the big cabin. In the kitchen there is a potato cellar underground and it needs sort of renovating. I'll walk you in the house now and show you where it is, what it looks like. So I've got lots planned for the cabin to do, lots of work planned while we're here. But I'll show you, one of the first things we're going to do is look at this potato cellar. So coming into the kitchen room, I've got a few tools set up here, some little battery lights. On the floor you can see that trap door. Beneath there is where they used to store vegetables and things. And what I'll do is I'll light it up and show you what's down there. So we haven't been down here for a year. There's the temperature at the moment. The out is down in the cellar. The in is in the kitchen. So nearly 15, but nearly 5 degrees lower. Like I say, we reset this before we left last year. So the highest it's been in this kitchen is nearly 19 in 12 months, and the highest in the cellar is 10. The lowest it got to was minus 12.9 inside the house and minus 6.9 in the cellar. So you can see there's sort of a 7 or 8 degree shift there. Quite amazed actually, because we know it got down to minus 29 outside this winter. So even the house was quite a bit warmer than the outside temperature, and the cellar only got down to minus 7. So as it is, it performs pretty well, but we're hoping to improve that. So looking down, it's quite deep. It's 6 or 7 foot deep. Staircase is a bit rickety. The walls are a bit rickety. I'm going to climb down now and show you what's down here. You can see the bottom 2 stairs have collapsed on this ladder. Probably not the greatest view. And here we are inside this little storage cellar, underground storage cellar. There's some not very nice things around there. I'm going to have to investigate that on the wall, see what that is. Slightly worried about that. So I'm not quite sure what this is. Whether it's some sort of mould or web. That looks like a spider. Some sort of amazing nest of some kind. I'm obviously going to clear all that. So looking around, what we've got here is this grey pipe with the bag stuffed in the end. That goes to a grey water tank in the forest garden. The black pipe that bends around, we put a stop tap on the end. That goes to the well. So we're going to have in, water out. Looking around, none of it looks very great condition. What I think I'm going to do to start with is just sweep it all out. Look at clearing some of this rotten wood out. We've got the staircase needs to be repaired, and looking at rebuilding this potato cellar. So it's about 4.5, 5 foot deep, and probably 6 foot, no, probably 8 foot by 8 foot square underneath here. Looking up at the beams, some of them don't look particularly great considering they're holding up the kitchen floor, but I think the way to start here is to clear it out. It's going to be quite difficult to film. I've got my battery lights. I think the first thing I can start doing is pulling out some of the rotten wood, and sweeping away these weird webs and little things. But there's nothing living down here, or seems to be nothing living down here. Obviously, as I expose and remove some of this rotten wood, I might find things, but not a very comfortable place to work. But it's going to be hopefully a useful place to use in the future. So I've got a selection of tools, some hammers, a chisel, a big hammer, and I've got a brush I found. So I'm going to head down that hole and start to make an effort at clearing it. So I'm sweeping away all this dust and webs and things. I'm just going to try just sweeping it to the floor for now, clearing anything that's loose, and trying to make space in here, pulling out things that are just sitting around. We'll see what we got. So start with a handy brush and try and make it a bit nicer place to work. And I'm going to move these pipes out of the way as well. I've got the 2 lights set up, so I've got good visibility. It's not as deep as I first thought, so I can't really stand up, but I'm making progress. You can see the size of the rocks that are in the ground. That's one on the floor. There's one just through that gap. There's some enormous rocks sitting under this house. Obviously I'm going to be very careful taking things out in case they are supporting things. We'll just start only moving loose things to start with. First sort of interesting thing, on this shelf they've made a liner. They've cut up milk cartons, like cardboard milk cartons, to make a shelf liner. It is interesting seeing what people did in the past and how they sort of used everything. So on this back wall I'm clearing some of these rotten beams, and there's lots of sawdust. Now they used to use sawdust as a insulation. So what I'm doing is just shoveling it over into this hole that's been made in this side for all the pipes to come through. I think this stone may have even fell out of there, so I'm going to just try and put it, because this wood is quite firm here, I'm going to try and just load that up over there for now. I'm now thinking if I clear the really rotten stuff and then rebuild on the inside another whole layer of wood, but as I do it, don't put any sort of earth or sawdust behind where it's going to be planked up, and that'll act as insulation then. So making some progress. Not a very nice job, but it's going okay. Quite hard to work out, but I've pulled out the wood from the end wall, or most of it. Some relief. I can see how big the floor joists are now. So where I'm looking at that little tiny bit is actually 8 inches deep or more, and there you can see what the house is sitting on. So there's big boulders and enormous great floor beams or logs. Yes, they're a little bit rotten, but all of this has been here for 100 years or more, so I guess it's not done too bad. You can see the sawdust piled up, how they insulated it. So what I'm thinking now is I've got the big floor beam there and the strong beams above. I'm thinking of digging this out a little bit, so making the room longer, so I can put a decent set of framing in attached to that and to the floor beams, and look at repaneling it. So I filled that hole in that way, and obviously the staircase has got to be repaired, but you can see it still goes down a long way. So I've moved a lot of this up into that hole, but I think I'm just going to carry on clearing this rotten wood out, and just shipping as much as I can up into that hole, so that way is at least insulated. All we need access to is this pipe, which is the water pipe coming from the well, and this waste pipe, because when we do renovate the cabin properly, the water drainage is going to drain down to here, and the water pump will be housed down here as well. These cables, I think, are either old telephone cables or possibly go into the other cabin, but I think they're just the old telephone cables that used to come here years ago. So that's a couple of hours. That's the first load of horrible wood to come out from under there. The battery lights are fading, so I'm going to give it a break now and carry on tomorrow. So day 2, making a bit of progress. That wall there is pretty solid, so I'm going to keep that one. This back wall is sort of hanging together. I'm going to go from the post. I took down the bottom wall that was completely crumbling. A little bit worried about a big beam because of what I thought was a big beam crumbled away. This side I'm just filling in with the sawdust for now. So the plan is to try and make an area where I can put 4 posts in one post in each corner, and then reline from above. This what was a cupboard I'm going to leave. I'm just going to put the overspill of sawdust and soil into that and put a lid on that, because that's eventually where the water pump is going to go. As you can see, it's just mud under here and sawdust. It's clearing quite easily. I still haven't exposed the bottom steps, but I'm just going to keep digging and clearing down. Okay, so I've cleared the bottom rotten post. I knocked it and it fell to pieces. I'm almost lost my steps to get out now, and there was like a big landslide. This great big granite rock come down. It's still dripping out now. It looks dramatic, but it's really only sawdust. So looking around, I'm gonna have to take this plank out here, I think, and those part planks. But I need to look at that top beam, which is solid, and make sure I get the steps secured up on it. So I'm going to have a way of getting out, but it's going pretty well. It's getting bigger and bigger down here. Nice and cool, so easy to work. So just a case of keeping on digging and hoping the house doesn't collapse on top of my head. That's the old wood, the old dusty, rotten wood going up in smoke, and another wheelbarrow full. So pulled a lot of wood out the cellar. A lot to be replaced. So I'm down in my underground cave. I managed to do a lot more digging out. I'll flip the camera around now and show you what I've done. So looking at the staircase, there's only a couple of steps left on this now. That wall's all dug out, and I've dug a deep hole in the corner, lined it with a rock in the bottom, and I'm going to put my first sort of supporting beam going up to the ceiling. There is a ginormous rock just balancing there, but what my plan is, build this side wall, pack it out with material, and make sure that rock is heavily wedged and supported. So I'm going to put 2 big beams in. I've just measured that. I'm going to attach the beam, rest it on the rock at the bottom, and attach it to the big cross beams at the top. I think I'm going to dig out, once I've got that one in, I'm going to dig out next to it in the middle, attach one there, and then look at planking in this side wall. It's probably going to be easier to see than explain once I've done it. So I've attached the first beam, settled on rocks and stones. I'm going to put another beam in the middle here. So what I'm going to do is fill that in just at the bottom, dig another hole in the middle, set another big boulder down there, and put another support beam in. So at least it's got 2 uprights to push on, new ones. Okay, so I've added the 3rd beam in. Another little collapse happened. But there are 3 solid beams now attached to the cross beams in the floor, the big thick cross beams in the floor, and they're all sitting on boulders and stones around them, so they're not going to go downwards. What I can do now is just dig out the front and see if I can get a couple of cross beams, panelling across the side there, and then I can start moving some of this earth because it's absolutely piled up everywhere now. Start tucking that behind as insulation. I am going to put probably a 2nd layer of wood all over this once it's finished, like a tongue and groove. That's an interesting thing I'm going to keep. There's I'm not sure if you can see light at the end of there. That's a ventilation tube that's been put in. So I think these potato cellars have to have ventilation as well. So I'll be keeping that, and I'll show you the other side of that later on. I'm going to clean that off and change the grill, and also put a grill this end. So I've got the 2 of the beams in. Managed to do a little bit of backfill in, cleared a bit of space. They fitted in perfectly behind that wedge, which was the bottom of the original planks. I've got a load more rotten wood out. So one of my lights is gone, needs recharging. I'm gonna have a break now, charge up my lights, get another 4 or 5 beams cut to go across and start building this up. But it's very strong. Like I say, each support beam has a massive rock underneath it, and as it ties together, it will strengthen. It's probably the slightly thicker wood than what it was built with. It's probably built 100 years ago. So if I do this, it should last at least my lifetime. Okay, wall is in. Up to quite a height. I have backfilled the top section. I'm going to backfill with rock wool. I've got 3 of the stairs working. I'm now going to build across the old stairs. Literally going to chainsaw them down and bolt them to, or nail them to that wall going down. So repair the stairs. The wood's good. The ends that are mouldy I'll be cutting off with a chainsaw anyway. So hopefully I can make a decent set of stairs up now. So I've rebuilt my steps into the cellar, and looking at the end wall now, just walk down. So I've got, there's a stone under there in that corner, which the other beam's on. I'm going to attach that to that wall, and then I'll put a new stone, a big stone under that, and I'm going to attach that to this beam above. So I'm going to measure that now, cut them out. Okay, back to the cellar. We just had a few days out in the Arctic Circle and touring northern Sweden. I'm back to work now, so I'll walk you back down. The stairs are looking a lot better. I must admit, when I started this job, I thought it would be a few days, or maybe a couple of days, just patching the wood. It's ended up being a much bigger job. Right, so we had a lot of rain here in the last few days we've been away. Luckily nothing looks damp down here. Looking around, I'm concerned the main floor supports are rock solid. I'm a little bit concerned about that beam up there, which I'll show you now, which is one of the main cross beams of the house. It doesn't feel that good. Hitting it with the hammer, with the spade. But at least the beams uprights that I've put in are holding up the floor for the future. And although it's crumbling, it's still got quite a bit of strength left in it, I think. So what I'm going to do now is dig out this end wall down to that corner. I've removed some of this cupboard that was there. Try and maybe put another support in over there, and put some cross beams across and backfill behind it. So I'll crack on with that. You can see as I dig, that's a huge rock there, but things do crumble and move. I must admit, when I first started this, it felt a little bit dangerous, but I'm secure now and feel like it's well held up. So I'm just going to dig down a hole, put a huge rock in, and put another support in. So I've marked up the next support beam. There's my crude cutting station, and I'm going to use this bad boy to cut through that. As you can see, this chainsaw, Black & Decker battery operated, cuts through like butter. They're brilliant because you can use them indoors where you can't really with a petrol one because of the fumes. So I'll go and fit this now. So I've set that in place on top of the rock, nailed up to the big supporting beam above. I've now got 3 cross beams. I am getting low on this scrap wood that I'm using as support. And what I'm going to do is I've got siding to take off the building, which is thick and strong. I'm going to go and remove some of that and start using that as cross beams. This is the siding I'm removing. It's what's been left on the house on this one part of the house. You see, it's quite thick wood. There's nothing wrong with it really, but we are going to be replacing it all next year. So I've got the mighty crowbar, just a case of levering it off here. Lots of nails going up. I've got a ladder, so I'll start taking some of these down for use in the cellar. Okay, got one giant plank down. For health and safety reasons, we didn't video that. But I managed to crowbar off the top beam, and I can get the next few off quite easily, I think. You can see where the birds have made holes in the wood near the top of the ladder. That's woodpeckers and things make holes. So I won't be able to use all of that, but these should be good solid planks for lining that cellar. So I've cut them to length, and I'm going to use, I managed to get 2 out of that one plank. And I'm going to use 1 thick beam at the very bottom. It's absolutely boiling again in Lapland. Like I say, it rained all day yesterday, I think. We were on the way home and it was raining. We got back, it was soaking. You wouldn't even know it had rained. Look around, everything looks dry. It's well in the 20s. I can promise you this is really unusual for August. And I'm working up a sweat, even though I'm down in a cool cellar and coming up again. It's so warm. So I panelled the end wall up. Just putting stones around the bottom of this edge because I'm planning to dig the middle of the floor out when it's finished. And what I've done is I've just backfilled with this sawdust waste down here. I'm going to fill this in again now. this giant pile of sawdust. Okay, so that's going to take me a while. I'll fill that in. So on this side wall, I'm going to leave what's there because it's fairly solid if you tap it, apart from the bottom. But I've got a big stone underground here in the rock. I've thrown that big crystal rock in there to make a corner post, and I've dug out and stuck another big rock in there. So I'm going to put 3 uprights and nail them into that support and support to the ceiling above. So I'm back in the potato cellar. See, I've had a slight collapse. It's just sawdust that's come out from behind that rotten wall. This wall I'm going to carry on building up now, the side wall, and then we'll start on that end wall last. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a couple of planks in. I'm going to go and rip one of these sides off the building again and get that a few more layers up. So that's today's plan, and then start on the rotten wall behind me. But it's feeling better down here. It's nice and cool, and I think it all feels strong, working well. Okay, so I've put in the back wall, just backfilled all that. So I've now got, if I do a full 360, that's my vent up there. There's my seriously rotten beams, but hopefully these supports will help the roof, the floor now as well. That wall I left intact. I backfilled it, but the wood was better there. One advantage I've got now over the previous builders, I've got a load of rock wool. So what I'm going to do is fill all this top voids with rock wool now, and then look at finishing the first layer of planking on the inside. So, and I've dug down slightly on the floor. I can almost stand up. I'm going to dig down a bit more yet, but off to get the rock wool now. Stick that in there. So this is the rock wool, 2 giant bags of it. Cost about £25 a bag. It's 45mm thick. I'm just going to completely line the top layer with the rock wool and bend it into shape. It only just fits down the hatch. It does get out. Like I say, it only just fitted in, but managed to get it down there. I'm going to continue stuffing the cavities with rock wool. So that's the top half, all filled with rock wool all the way around. Obviously the bottom half's full of cement, not cement, sawdust and sand. Although I wear a mask, it just feels like it's all over me now. So I think I'm going to probably call it a day, and then come back tomorrow, finish these first planks all the way to the ceiling, and then look at starting the inner planks as well to give it even more insulation. Okay, I've finished paneling in the first layer on this wall. Just stuffed the top with rock wool, left the vent open, and when I put on the tongue and groove layer, I'm going to work from the top downwards, so the overlap will be at the bottom of that run. So now I've just got to do the other walls. So I'm going to start with this end wall next. So I've finally got all the walls lined with the first layer of wood. Just at the very top I've filled in with rock wool, make it more insulated. I'm absolutely sweating down here, hard work. What I'm going to do now is go and take off the tongue and groove in the front room that we're going to put down here as an inner liner. So crowbar time and take it off the walls. So for the inner lining of the potato cellar that we're restoring, we're going to use this wood that's on the wall here. It's very good wood, just quite difficult to get off. Using a crowbar, managed to get the top layer off, and now just using a crowbar to damage it as least as possible, and take each plank down for reusing. So there's one coming off. Although we like this wood, we don't want this room finished in it, so and these will be cut to size and used in a potato salad. So this is the wood that's come down. It's perfectly great wood, very thick, probably 10-12 millimeters thick, completely clad this room, and it's a huge 20-odd foot room. It's quite difficult getting the first bit off, but once you've got that off, it just pries down. You can see what was originally on the walls, those old planks painted blue. There's another look at them over there. And although we do like the look of it, we want to take all that down and replace it all. We're probably going to keep the panels at the bottom and look at maybe either recovering or restoring what was already there. So as you can see, there's a lot of wood in here. This one wall will probably do the potato cellar lining. So just going to be a case now of ripping those down, get them measured, cut to size, knock all the nails out and reuse. Okay, so as you can see, pretty cramped up here. I'm going to try and put this next wall up now, and I'll just speed this footage up. The final wall, which is probably the most complicated, I've cut out around the pipes, going to add a bit more insulation over that. Where the vent comes through, I've cut a big notch in the log and I've covered it in this wire and tacked that down. I will put a bit of trim over the top of that as well, but it's going well. So just got to get around all these stairs, fill in little gaps and go down to the bottom. So the ceiling's completely finished as well. Any little gaps I've just stuffed with rock wool. What I'm going to do now is put trim all the way around all the edges and down the sides, and get it all trimmed out just roughly, just to help insulate it a bit more, finish it off, and then I'll look at putting some shelves in. So Going to cut the trim, get that in position, and then I'll show you a video of it completed before we go onto the shelves. So that's all the trim put on, going all around the gaps in the corners and the edges. It looks really good. Again, it's going to do a good job of supporting the place. Some bits around the steps are hard. I've just filled in with some planks on there. And what I'm going to do now is put in some shelves. So what we want is 2 shelves, a top shelf, quite a narrow shelf, and a lower shelf, quite thick. So I'm going to put in supports and use basically the same as we've used on the walls to make shelves. One plank wide, 2 planks wide. So I'll set up all the supports now and then look at putting the shelves in. So just about finished now, done all the shelving. We've got 5 shelves going round, 3 single planks and 2 big doubles at the bottom. It ended up, it's looking like a lot like a sauna, puts me in mind of a sauna, and hopefully it'll do a good job, perform well. I've lined it with rocks around it. There's obviously the dirt floor where the cold air should come up from the ground, or warm air in the winter, keep it warm. Yeah, I'm really pleased how it's turned out. It looks great. It's really well insulated, and obviously now the winter will be the test of it. We're going to stick the thermometer down and monitor it through the year. Whereabouts in the world are we? We're 64 point something north latitude, southern Lappland. So we're quite away from the Arctic, about 150 miles from the Arctic, but still very cold area. It can get down, last year it got down to -30. I think some years in the past it's been even colder than that. Obviously this is like a thermos box sitting underground. In terms of where we are in the country, we're about 90 miles from the coast, so a long way inland, and our elevation is about 900 feet. So yes, it's 4 or 5 foot underground, fully insulated. Hopefully it'll keep away the freezing temperatures, but it's going to have to wait and see. I have been shutting the loft on it as I've been doing it, and it's about 5 or 6 degrees below the room temperature above. So we will probably have some cold temperatures before we leave, and we'll see how it performs then. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the work. It took me about 10 days to restore the potato cellar in this old cabin. It probably hasn't been touched for 70 years. It was collapsing. It's certainly sturdy now, fully insulated, and going to be a good asset. The weather's been so great here. We've been busy and out a lot most days. I think it probably will start cooling down soon. We'll be doing less fishing and more work. So we're semi-retired. We've come out here for a holiday stroke work. Certainly one thing we want to do is the windows. I will show you something now that we discovered while gathering the wood for this potato cellar. So while stripping out the wood in here in the main room, we discovered this doorway cut into the wall, and you can literally see daylight through there. I've stuck a ruler through. There's also a little something to be crawling in. But it's good to know what's under here and exposed. One plan we have for this house is to put a garden room on the outside at the back. There's a big patched in area, so we could well have the ready-made doorway to go out there. So that was a bit of a bonus find in some ways.